Hey, what's up, DeRacers? So this week we had a long interview with Adele that we're still finishing up the editing, so we'll get that posted up soon, hopefully. But then while we were doing that, the new roadmap dropped. So that was kind of an exciting thing. We were not really prepared for it. We were mostly all in on working out this interview conversation with Adele. So when that came out, that was exciting. We've been spending hours and hours this year alone working with the team, helping them go through community suggestions. What we've learned was this new roadmap is 100% community suggestion focus, which is awesome. And then there was a lot of suggestions. So what we were trying to do was to help shed light on what this could impact on the gameplay, like whether we think it would increase race count, whether we think the community would be excited by it, and whether we thought it would just be neutral, just whatever it is. So today, we just wanted to go through what we could see on this one and maybe share with you some behind the scenes to help you make sense of it.
Yeah. So let's frame out what we're seeing on the roadmap. You can actually see this on the main site. You can go to /roadmap and take a look. What they've done is they've kind of shown what happened in 2023 Q4, what they've released. Those things are in green. They're going to have a little green check mark next to them. Anything that you see in blue means that they've already finished it and it's in testnet. Basically, it's in either final testing or it's been fully tested but not released yet. And then you've got items that are going to be in gold, which means they're starting to work on those. They're in development right now. And then the little gray circle is indicating that it's something that's coming that they haven't really fully started on, but it's in the maps and plans.
Yeah, and now you'll see this directly from Adele, so we'll just give you a little sneak peek. We were asking a lot of questions. 100% of the questions were folks about marketing and growing mass adoption and all of that. And one of the questions we brought up was just like, why are you guys holding back? And she really dives into it really in great detail. But one of the basic points is in marketing, the cost of acquisition of a customer or a gamer in this world. When the things are slow and the market is bearish, they're putting in a lot of energy to develop these features, and they want to make sure that they splash in a way that it's effective. The other thing is that they are not naive. They know that certain things aren't working correctly. Like sugar has no utility. Nobody really wants sugar. Therefore, equipment then just has a lot of challenges from there. So what I like seeing in this is the very first part of Q1 is to figure out ways to implement sugar utility. And they say that multiple times because there are a lot of ideas in a lot of these new features that have opportunities to introduce more utility.
Yeah, what's interesting too, and when we're looking at what's on screen right now, the middle column is Q1 of 2024, which we're halfway through right now. So that's why you would expect to see a lot of that already being worked on, which we do see. We also see stuff in Q2 that's being worked on. And this gets to your point a little bit about how they're not naive. They do recognize that there's certain things that can't be released until something else is done. And so the roadmap has been kind of reconfigured, and that's why some of the stuff in 2023 hasn't been fully released yet. It's also really important to note that, things like the NFT jockeys or the teams related stuff that we see in Q2 that's either being worked on or is ready in testnet. There's elements back in Q4 of 2023, such as the Jockey Silks generator, that's ready to go, but there's no point in releasing that because you don't have people running equipment. You don't have jockeys on your horses. There's reasons why, even though it's been developed, it hasn't been released because there's more stuff that's coming. And so when we look at the next next few months, as we wrap up all the way through Q2, there's a lot of stuff that's coming out that's all going to be packaged together. And I would have to suspect that a lot of that's going to be rolled out in succession. Now, it may all be lumped onto us. I'm not 100% sure of that, but I suspect it's going to be one after another because they're going to make sense to work off of each other or in tandem.
Yep. Now, we don't really know. Some of these things we have an idea of what they mean because some of them were suggestions that we were heavily assisting. Others, it's kind of not fully sure. Now, worst time races, I'm assuming that's just the donkey cups or the donkey races. So if that's what it is, there's going to be new tracks that appear that are all designed about last is first. So people that have donkeys that competed in the bear tournament that we recently hosted, this is going to become a regular thing. The other element about this is the NFT burning mechanism upgrade. I don't think it's necessarily the mechanism. I think it's really the economic payout. because what we were pointing out was there's no purpose of burning a horse right now. You think you get like 180 sugar, and I accumulate lots of sugar every single day. It's no point to just throw that horse away. So I'm assuming they're reviewing the payouts. That'd be my guess with Mechanism. But yeah, they know that that's wrong. But what's the point of burning unless you have utility? So that has to go with that sugar expansion.
We also see that in Q1 here, a handful of the items are related to tournaments. And we know that tournaments just came out. There's been some that have happened, but they're wanting to ramp that up. And one of the big ways that they're going to do that is to automate it, which is great. That'll allow for repeatability throughout different types of tournaments. But we also see here that there's tournaments V2 that's being worked on. They have automatic tournament updates with additional prizes, which we know is already done as well. And then if you skip ahead to the next quarter, we actually have tournaments V3. And what's interesting about that is we don't know the difference. I assume V2 is going to be some changes that we've suggested to the way that you can score or rank the horses in a different tournament. There's also some different structural elements and some minor cosmetic elements that need to change. But then what's V3? We don't actually know. There's not an explanation here between what's coming in V2 versus what's coming in V3. So that's exciting. But it also means that what we see in V2 is probably only going to be a part of what we really want to get to by V3. Yeah. I'm also going to add to this before I jump out of tournaments. There's a lot that we're going to be doing with tournaments coming up, and that's really exciting. We are still playing with the changes as they come out. So we're going to modify the tournaments that we do and come up with different ones throughout if we can.
All right. So what I wanted to bring up too now, improvement of equipment races, our interpretation of this. So something that we say, I hate restrictions in the gameplay. Don't tell me I can't compete here. Motivate me to compete somewhere else. That's the way that I like games to function. And that was where I really just voiced my opinion on this one. So when it came to the improvement of equipment races, where I was constantly casting my thoughts was we should be motivated to go there. So it could mean that they're going to do a better payout to equipment races, because to me, that would motivate it. So like if there was a reason to go there and to run with equipment and to deal with all the nuances of setting up your horses and make sure you have the right gear, that makes sense. So fingers crossed, that's something that comes out. In the leaderboard upgrade, there's just lots of room, whether it could be prizes for achieving leaderboards, different lookups, separating equipment from non-equipment. There's a lot of opportunity there. Not sure what they're putting in on this one, but they definitely recognize that there's huge rooms for improvements on that. And then the free trial mode, Adele brings that up too in the interview. So she's going to touch on that a bit more, but it's not about us playing for free. This is part of the mass adoption approach, trying to drop barriers so that way people that want to experiment with this game, they can do so without winning assets and not without having to spend money. They can just go out there and understand how this game functions. So that to me is a really good way of onboarding new players.
Yeah, exactly right. Onboarding is exactly what it is. It's being able to bring in new people to the game and essentially walk them through a tutorial on how to do everything in the basic elements of the game. Now on Q2, I'm really there's a lot of stuff in Q2 that I'm really excited about, and I'm curious what all it means. I mean, the cross-chain solution, I have to assume that's going to be related to the ability to get people and the token itself into the game from various different avenues. That's fantastic. There's also in that list, the release of NFT jockeys, but right below that it says NFT silks launch, which implies that the silks themselves are going to be a separate NFT. And that's not necessarily something that I had pondered much before. Thinking about designing silks was one thing, but thinking of them as a separate ownable NFT is something that I feel is either gone straight over my head in the past 6 months and was available, or it's something new that I wasn't aware of.
Yeah, that one not so much either. I know that we've been talking to them a lot about the teams and clubs launch, because we have hosted many team events off the platform. And so they're trying to help move that into the game so that way we can create more fun events from there. And to me, the brandability, the recognition to see a horse looks like the DeRacers Elite. That like things like that was stuff that we were pushing for, where we thought it would be cool that when you're why go to watch one of these races and you don't know any of the details? Who's the owner? What's the team? Like how strong of a stable do they represent? There's elements, there's stats. Like we want more details from that. So there's a lot of motion on that. The AI integration.
I was going to ask you what you thought that might entail.
I think this was the part, because I remember reading that they wanted to be able to put more news out. So events and such, I think that was the integration to Twitter. So I don't know if they're trying to make it into a streamable thing. I said that this could be cool, but I don't think the community is going to be too excited by it. This is probably one of the least exciting features that I see, if that's what I remember. I love seeing more and more sugar expansion, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, what do you think the Sugar Cube utility is going to be? I mean, we're at this point, guys, honestly, we don't know the specifics of what it might entail. We just know that we've given lots of ideas. It could be 2 of those, it could be 15 of those ideas. But I'm going to ask you, Vamp, what do you think the best heavy hitters might be?
So the thing that I've been asking for with sugar utility is the ability to buy your cooldown rate on breeding. So the fact that Gen 1s are coming out in Q2, I'm going to suspect that Sugar Cube utility on this one is going to be buy down. We don't know how they would do it or if they're going to do it, but we're telling them that like there's breeders in the game, there's the racers in the game, there's just the asset holders in the game. And so for sugar utility, you need to create a place where each player can use it. So being a breeder stable, like accumulating mad sugar, if I can use sugar to pay down so I can keep Skondert breeding as regular as possible, it will motivate me to run the Dong family, who's not very good, and they're pretty much benched all the time. So if I was able to get those horses out there, they turn into harvesters, which would then benefit me with my breeding focus with Skondert, especially with Dirk Army regularly doing these unraced tournaments.
Yep.
I want to show up with as many horses as possible. So I'm thinking the sugar utility on that one's going to be cooldown. That's going to go in conjunction with that Gen 1 breeding.
I have to assume the same thing. The only other thing that I think, we don't quite know yet is whether or not it will be related to anything with the jockeys and the silks NFTs. If you can do the silk generation for your team or your club and use sugar for that, again, integrating sugar utility into the teams and clubs option just opens up a world for all sorts of different things. You could have membership based on sugar. You could have racing inside the club, or tournaments have sugar usage. There's a lot of different ways that sugar could be used. It's a great mechanism for potential, but it just hasn't been tapped into yet.
Yeah, now when it comes to the tournaments V3, we already mentioned, like, don't know where they're going to go from there. There's a lot of tournaments that we've hosted. There's different ideas. Bringing in that new scoring allows us to get even more creative. One of the ideas that we were talking about was like the derby that we originally proposed to them, to have qualifier events to lead into it, to have scores and the ability to then re-invite you to finish in the finals that can take place later. There could be some really cool things with the tournaments. DJC utility is another one that I was just screaming for, where we want more than just the hippodrome ownership. We don't even have hippodromes yet. So what's the point of owning an OP? And we were really just pushing on them, going like, consider those people as not just a profile image. Of course, that's a part of it, but figure out ways to implement in, whether it is discounts for breeding, whether it is reductions on cooldown, or whether it's invitations to other programs, anything. Give us a reason to own these OPs. And I'm glad that they're starting to do that. Q2's coming fast. I know we're not going to be able to dive in all this because there's so much unknown, but it looks like Q3 is going to be the season for OP holders, which I get excited for.
Yeah, I think Q3 is looking like a lot of it is going to be for people that have stuck around, right? That have been a part of the game. You're getting rewarded with everything from ancestry rewards to multiple forms of utility, to potentially the community-owned hippodromes finally coming out. Putting those in, all of that in the hands of the people that are constantly racing, all of you guys, right, is really what it's about. Now, like you said, we're not going to dive into Q3, Q4 here. There's too many question marks at this point. We could have fun surmising what we think might be there, but really it's about what's happening in the next 4 months or so, right?
Yeah.
What we see is is major. It's tournament focused, it's team focused, it's sugar utility expansion. It's Gen 1's finally being able to breed, which comes with its own wave of changes. And just like you said to me earlier, it's a paradigm shift for how people are going to be playing this game and using the Gen 1s in different ways now.
Yeah. And the only thing I could add to this is the regular repeatability of the Sugar Cube utility expansion. We're seeing that show up on every single quarter. What I get very excited by this is that in some of the conceptual ideas that were shared, and we're talking about dozens of pages of stuff that we helped go through, there was lots of ideas, new gameplays. These new gameplays opened up new opportunities to use sugar. So the fact that sugar is appearing as a utility on each quarter gives me hope that a lot of these side games and concepts are going to be implemented in as well. And as that happens, what I can infer from that is that this is going to open up more opportunities, whether you're a solo player, whether you're a team player, whether you're a tournament player. I think you're going to be able to find more and more places to play this game and to fit your personality. If you don't want to use a bot, you don't need to use a bot. But if you're a high quantity harvester and all that stuff, there's going to be a specific place for you. So seeing the Sugar Cube utility again and again and again, I would just caution anybody watching that thinking that it's just recycling a term. I think what that means is painting the picture that a lot more features are coming and sugar is going to become finally a useful asset. So in the meantime, I'm just going to keep stockpiling as much sugar as I can and see what I can use it for as soon as I can start cashing it out.
That's exactly right. I think over the next, well, especially over the next year or so, it's going to be a pretty wild ride. I know seeing what we see in the roadmap is exciting. But I suspect that as they've done in the past, you know, as a quarter wraps up and they readjust some of what's getting done, we may see things get added or removed from this list as well. And ultimately, like you said at the beginning of this video, that's because of community input. So stick with it. Keep putting those suggestions in. Hit us up if you guys have ideas and think that we can get it in front of them easier. Or if you just have questions about what it is we've proposed to them, happy to chat. We love doing that. So yeah, keep it up, guys.